Stellar Fundraising Auctions presents Black Tie and Tails, brought to you by our partner, Sojourn Ventures, with your hosts, fundraising auctioneers Greg Quiroga and Devon Bell, and this episode's special guest, Leslie Peterson of the Sonoma Valley Hospital Foundation. Welcome to Black Tie and Tails, where we share tales of triumph and tragedy from behind the scenes in the wonderful world of fundraising auctions. I'm Greg Quiroga, half of the co-hosting team, joined by my co-host Devon Bell.
Hello all.
And we are on site for our second episode being recorded here at the Boys and Girls Club of Sonoma Valley. Shout out again to Michael Irvine and the Boys and Girls Club for having us. And this episode, we are joined by our guest, Leslie Peterson, the Executive Director of the Sonoma Valley Hospital Foundation. Welcome, Leslie.
Thanks, Greg. And Devon, it's good to see you both. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, congratulations on your new role with the Hospital Foundation. And while you're not currently a client, and that's not in any way, shape, or form a nudge, Devon and I have both had the pleasure of working with you over the years.
Yeah, for quite some time.
Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, thanks for the reminder.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know if you had grandchildren, and I know my kid was, all our kids were a lot younger back then, but hey, here we are.
Here we are,
yeah. How's the hospital treating you?
The hospital is great. It's a great place. The people at the hospital are fantastic. I can't say anything. We are very fortunate in our valley to have Sonoma Valley Hospital.
Yeah. And I've known the Stones for a long time and know that they've been big supporters of the hospital and the foundation, and have seen a lot of the work that the hospital's done. I mean, I was telling somebody recently, like, the first big fundraising auction I did, first wine auction I participated in, was the Sonoma Harvest Wine Auction back in 2004. I've been working in the valley for 20-something years at this point. And it's always an honor to be able to come and work with organizations. And in a previous iteration, you were at the Hannah Boys Center.
I was.
Which isn't even the Hannah Boys Center anymore.
It's just Hannah Center,
they've undergone a change. But it was so long ago. And Devon and I both worked with you at the Hannah Boys Center. And so this episode's theme, we were talking through like what we're gonna do and what some of the ideas were. And we came back to carefully, it's one of Devon's lines.
Oh, what? A carefully planned spontaneity.
Absolutely.
Right.
and that summarizes what a good fundraising auction is so very well, because you talk to anybody who's involved in improvisation and they'll tell you that they spend months and months planning to make it look like they made it up on the spot. But also
it has to be flexible, right? It's really just about flexibility. Best laid plans are wonderful, but if you can be nimble and flexible, I think in any stage of event, it's important.
A Greg line: no plan, no schedule survives first contact with the actual guest.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No run of show.
Right.
Ever survives first contact. And oftentimes your carefully planned spontaneity winds up, I mean, we were talking about this on the way in. The auction is this scripted improvisation, right? Like we have this script, we're gonna introduce this thing, we're gonna hope that people are interested in it. And then as soon as we say, okay, we'll start the bidding, anything can happen.
Yeah.
From there's no bids, and it's that's our respective nightmares. Take it really personally when there's nobody bidding on something. You can't see me.
Oh, we die inside a little.
On the inside. To something crazy happens, and there was a year with Hannah where something really crazy good happened, and it was. I think the 49ers had just moved into Levi's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the 49ers had just moved into Levi Stadium, and someone had donated their suite. They had a suite. I think it was Gary and Marcia Nelson had donated their suite to Hannah Center, and we decided we were going to auction it off. And you auctioned it off, great. And the most amazing thing happened is the people that bought it, they were wanting to bring their kids, and so it was them and so they wanted 4 of the 20 tickets that were available for that suite. And so what they did was they donated 16 seats back, and they donated those 16 seats to the kids. And so we were then able to...
And we're like, never one to miss an opportunity. I was like, that's great. Hold your horses. Yeah. Who wants to sponsor the kids to go do this, right? Because this was sponsor a spot had happened. I'd seen it happen once or twice somewhere else. And I was like, okay, who wants to sponsor a youth at $1,000 each
Yeah.
to go to this 49ers game. And so we sold another 16 spots
Yeah.
at $1,000 each to join the guy who had just paid $20,000 for 4 spots. So we made $36,000 on
Yeah.
one suite and got to send 16 kids to the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Heartwarming, right? It was such a feel-good
It's all
moment.
for the kids, literally.
100%.
And what I love about that too is that it successfully resolves that tension between wanting it to be egalitarian, wanting to be community and everyone be involved.
Right.
But that's not how auctions are.
No.
Auctions are, you're a tall poppy, you have the most money, you win.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this way you kind of got your cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so many other people got to participate because they were like, I'll sponsor a kid for $1,000.
Right.
It makes it an affordable, right? When you do a live auction, a lot of times, you have a small portion of the people that are actually participating in it. And so when it's $1,000, a lot more people could participate in it.
Yeah.
And what's really fascinating about those sponsor a spot opportunities is the first time I did one, I learned the hard way that there are people who really want to participate in the opportunity to sponsor a kid to do something specific, right? And the first time I did one was for the Boys and Girls Club in St. Helena, and we had 16 tickets to an A's game, and we had transportation to take the kids down, and staff are going to ride along with them and go and do the whole thing. And said, okay, who wants to sponsor a kid to go to the game at $1,000 a kid? It's where I got the idea and brought it to, no original thought in this brain. I just borrow ideas and re-implement them,
I'm all about that.
which is part of fundraising in general. That's what fundraising is all about. So we sold 16 spots. One of the secrets, if you're watching the auction, is my brother's deaf, so I'm able to keep count on one hand behind my back. So when I'm doing something that has very specific numbers, so we got to 16. I'd sold 16. I knew we were at 16. I said, that's great. And a woman comes running up and says, guy at my table wants to sponsor somebody to go to wants to sponsor another kid. I'm like, oh no, we're done. We sold all 16. He can participate in the Fund the Need. And the guy was pissed. He was like, no, I wanted to sponsor a kid. He did not give any money in the Fund the Need and came up to me afterwards and gave me an earful. It was like, for $1,000, you could have bought another ticket and put the kid on his own limo and sent him to the game and still made money.
In his own seat.
Yeah. And I was like, you know what? You're totally right. I blew that. And so ever since then, when we've got to sponsor a spot like that, if I know it's something like bleacher seats, not a suite, not the owner suite or something, but when it's bleacher seats, I'll just oversell it and go for it. But that just goes to like the donor in the moment deciding to switch gears and change the nature of the auction lot and also the event, because that was a turning point in that game. I mean, he paid $20,000. I mean, that was exciting. I mean, somebody else bid $19,000. It wasn't like the auction was flailing before that. It was doing great. Yeah. But that was a fundamentally that was a really important moment. Like that changed the entire event.
Yeah, it really did.
And you said it perfectly, Leslie. Okay, let's start debating at $7,000 and go. There's a big portion of the audience, their eyes glaze over right then.
Yeah.
This is not part of me. So it was a way to not only help the kids, but open up the giving to a lot more people.
Absolutely, which I think is so important. And it's just from being a person who works at a nonprofit, I'm not able to go to a live auction and raise my paddle at $10,000. And there is a feeling that you get when you're like, okay, we're doing this $100 thing for you little people. So it's nice. It's nice that you have a way to involve everyone. But this was like, I can really do something for a kid. And that feels really great.
Little secret, we don't live the life we sell.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, good call. I haven't raised my paddle a lot of times at these events.
No, I have a trip coming up for an organization that is one of the auction lots is to spend 3 weeks sailing aboard the World.
Oh, we've all done it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's a cruise ship that is every stateroom is privately owned. And they have 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. Oh, yeah. And they're apartments, basically.
And
full kitchen, full bathroom.
You catch up with the boat wherever it is.
It sails worldwide, and you just fly and land on it. And when I first started doing this 20-something years ago, an apartment aboard the World was valued at $1-something million.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that number's only gone up, right? And it's like, I don't think I'm going to be doing that anytime soon. The value on 3 weeks is $100,000.
No, I just recently bought my first big auction item, and it was to buy my son's honeymoon.
Oh, nice.
Good double duty there, Leslie.
Yeah, nice.
I was like, what can I do? I want to support, and how can I do that? And I was like, oh, his weddings are going to cost money anyways. So I'm like, I'll raise my paddle and buy his honeymoon. So
nice.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of affordable vacations, Black Tie and Tails is brought to you by our partners, Sojourn Ventures. When your auction's in need of some international travel, check out Sojourn Ventures. They curate trips to Bali, Spain, and Italy, where they now have 3 options: Cortona, Venice, and
Puglia,
where you can spend a week, or your bidders can spend a week on the coast at the heel of Italy's boot in warm Mediterranean waters. All these trips have reasonable consignment prices. They offer over a dozen curated packages. You can get things like round-trip airport transfers, full-body massages,
yes, please,
daily breakfast, in-home chef's dinner, and more added on. Your buyers get to enjoy top-level concierge service and 2 full years to redeem their trip, all at, once again, reasonable consignment prices. Check out sojournventurestravel.com or look for the link in the bio of this podcast.
Well, I actually wanted to say one more thing about that person giving away all the rest of the spots. And
Sure.
then a bunch of guests get to give $1,000 for a specific kid. And that kind of ethos, we tap into that all the time when we say at the different levels of the fund and need what your gift will do.
Right.
And it's because we all know that all expenditures come out of this pile and all funds that are donated go into the pile, but that's not sexy, that's not necessarily relatable. It's the same reason that they don't say give money to help save elephants. They're like sponsor an elephant, right? And so when like you said, the idea of, hey, it's for the kids, that's great and that's compelling. But hey, there's one kid I'm going to send to a Niners game for this experience they'll remember for a lifetime. That really hits you in the heart. So it was great that I mean, you didn't plan it beforehand. They just did that in the moment.
No, it was just in the moment.
They had a good feel for what makes an event work.
They had a plan.
Yeah, they had a plan. Yeah.
And I totally appreciated that plan. And that plan was to throw the gauntlet down and then pick it back up, dust it off, and give it to the kids.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Devon, you and I have known each other since 4th grade. Shout out Miss Mendy's class.
Yeah. 45 years, 46 years.
Something like
Wow,
that.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, we go way back. And we won't even get into the story of how Devon tested out of 4th grade and left me in that horrible classroom without any friends, because that's water under the bridge at this point.
And then how Greg got out by getting expelled.
It's true. I escaped 4th grade.
It's not how it sounds.
I escaped Miss Mendy's class by getting expelled. It was the best thing that could have happened to me that year. We were talking about how our jobs prepared us for this job when we were coming in. This is a tangent, but it'll circle back around, I promise. And I dealt blackjack in my 20s, which prepared me for this job in very, very interesting ways, in terms of dealing with different crowds and not, wanting to keep everybody happy and not trying to get anybody too
Being
mad.
able to count on your fingers behind your back.
Exactly. Exactly. Nice callback, Leslie. And Devo, you, and I hope I'm not breaking anonymity, but you waited tables in Northern California for a good run. And I remember you were really good at it.
Well, I had lots of practice.
You were really good at engaging with your people, is what I'm saying. You had really good at making. And so when Leslie came to me and said, we're doing our event at City Hall, and this would have been in the 2010s, early 2010s, I want to say.
I'm going to say 2014.
Maybe 2009.
No, that's when we founded this.
Oh, because
That's
it
when we
was still
founded
Reynolds
Stellar.
Buckley.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you're
yeah.
right. It was
Buckley.
probably
Yeah.
2009, 2010.
Yeah, I think it was 2009. If I'm not mistaken.
It was a while back, and you said we're going to do our event at City Hall, and I still have pictures of this event. So,
I have a whole book.
Yeah,
It's beautiful. It was beautiful,
gorgeous,
but a nightmare.
And City Hall in San Francisco has this big cupola and a nice big circular, the staircase comes down, and at the base of the stairs is where we're going to put all the tables. And you're like, oh yeah, but also we've sold this out so much that there are going to be tables. Well, I mean, you can explain where we want to put it. And so, but as soon as I knew what was happening, I'm like, oh, Devo, I want you to come be a spotter for me, because City Hall that year, you had tables on the mezzanine behind what was the stage, all the way around the mezzanine and at the far side. It was logistically, for an auctioneer, one of the most challenging auctions I had done up until that point, and still stays up there pretty hard. But also, you said the logistics of City Hall were rough.
It was rough. I've been fortunate. The most of the events that I've put on, big gala type events, were all on the site. So we had, time to roll it in, time to put it together, time to clean it up and roll it out. San Francisco City Hall had a lot of limits. You had to, you could only park on the side of the road between 6 and 8 a.m. So you had to get a U-Haul, have volunteer people that were driving up and dropping stuff and unloading things into a little door in an old building in City Hall, an elevator with one of those metal gates. And, it's a lot of marble. You had to visqueen all up the walls of anywhere there was being food served. And a shout out to Park Avenue Catering. It was when I was sold on Park Avenue Catering and their ability to serve. I think there were 550-ish people at that event, and there were multiple levels where they had to serve hot meals and have a bar open, and you guys as auctioneers we're spotting people that are on a second floor that are up there, and the acoustics were rough, but it was a stunning event.
I remember that too. It was
stunning.
Visually, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Everything else was challenging.
Yeah. Everything else was challenging. And then you have to be out of that by, I think there was at 2:00 in the morning. And I don't think my feet have ever hurt more than they did that day. Yeah, it was beautiful. And, having all that, it was anniversary. I think it was the 60th anniversary of Hannah Center, which was founded in San Francisco. So they really wanted to kind of bring it home back to the city. I think I said, if we ever have to do that again, I will quit and get another job, because it was very, very hard.
That's your red line.
Hospital Foundation.
And that's not why. But.
I remember when you said the layout, there's going to be people at the top of the stairs behind you. I was like, oh my gosh, I need somebody I trust with a microphone up there to be able to not just tell me when there's bidders, but to call paddle numbers if somebody wins. Because I was like, just in terms of a time standpoint, there wasn't going to be time to run up the stairs, go get them.
They weren't too far away. There was no visual line of sight between you and them.
Yeah, I remember. And that was when I was like, hey, you should come check this out. And that was the first entree into fundraising auctions. Like, what is this thing you've been doing? And I was like, oh, I've been doing this for 5 years now. I know everything.
You're a pro.
What could possibly go wrong?
But I mean, I think, again, to circle back to the theme, you do a lot of work to build towards what is meant to feel spontaneous, right?
Absolutely.
And what hopefully the attendees remember from an event like that isn't like, oh my gosh, I was on the mezzanine, because we actually sent you around with a microphone, reading out paddle numbers during the fund the need, right? Like you went all the way around the upper deck. You might not be remembering this. It's not sparkling eyes, but I remember very clearly. Went around and was like, 1, 2, 3, $250, 4, 5, 6, like did all the calls and everything else out up there. That was fun. In hindsight, now that it's over.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like I said, it was beautiful, it was stunning, it was challenging. It was very challenging. And the sound, because we were in a rotunda, was probably the hardest part, which made it very hard for the auction.
That's a reverb.
It made it hard for speeches and anything that was happening, but it was stunning and memorable in so many ways, both positive and negative.
Well, and that brings us to the final story. And I think it's fun that all of the stories we have this week are tied to events that we've done with you, because the final story was, again, tied to a very specific moment in time. The Giants had just won their first World Series, maybe their second. I don't remember. I think it was, I think it would have had to, because that hug of between Buster and Bumgardner, I think that was after their second or third World Series. That was when they beat the Chiefs. I mean, not the Chiefs. They beat the Kansas City Royals.
That was the every other year run.
Every other year run.
And that was when Bumgardner came out to just dash the hopes of Royals fans in Kansas City. And I still celebrate that moment, because Lord knows your Chiefs have taken away all my other sports-related joy for the last 5 years. But you did something like the theme that year was
Color outside the lines.
which would have been fun to talk about on the theme of the episode we just talked about. But like talk about what talk about that theme.
I think the theme, you know, our themes at Hannah Center were always around the evening with the All-Stars, and the All-Stars were the kids. And so how can we, you know, take the theme, whatever it is, and create something that really kind of flashes back to why it's, who are the All-Stars and why we're focusing on these kids. So these kids come from a little outside the lines, and that's okay. And how can we make that beautiful? And so once we had that theme and that idea, we really were able to kind of make a splash. And when I say splash, it was splash. There were we worked with a wonderful, wonderful woman and now friend of mine. Her name's Jackie Dufresne. She's a beautiful artist. She made these the paint cans, and they had epoxy paint, and on every centerpiece there was a light. You would push the little light inside, would light up this paint can that had this epoxy stand that kind of poured paint all over the table in epoxy. So cool. It was beautiful, and the florals were beautiful. But how could we do something that was, you know, around the theme? And we thought about one of those painters that like literally like splash things that you'll see at halftime of a Warriors game or something.
Right. Yeah. Play some music and, you know,
something. Yeah. Play some music and then you can't tell what it's going to do and it's going to end up being. And so we're like, well, let's look into that. And so we found this guy from this state. I don't remember his name. But I've got it in my script. I'll Google it. Yeah. I'll go back and look at my script. Yeah. And he was super talented, and he came and he tried to talk us into doing this. And we said, no, we want something that's Giants themed. And we had like that picture of the hug, which is between Buster Posey and Madison Bumgarner. Right. And so he kind of was like, no, I think we should do, you know, like, I don't know, some famous singer or something. And we're like, no, we think this will be good. And he was from out of state, so you had to pay his travel costs and get him a place to stay. And then kind of at the last minute, he's like, oh, and I have to bring my manager because he wants to come too. And so all of the costs are going up, and I'm like, oh, I could get fired for this because this painting has to sell for something, right? And the costs are just going up. You're investing into this auction item. And I was like, oh, this could go really bad. I was really nervous. And what I remember from that guy the night of was that he was not happy with the way the sound system was set up. Like there was like on top of all of that, like that you'd alluded to, there was something also like the sound system wasn't right and the music was, and I was like, you know, like I respect an artist. Like I have needs when it comes to my sound system too, but this guy. Yeah. And he's a painter. He's he's not using a post-it. I was just going to say that. Just paint your painting already. Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think that, you know, we really had to get into it with him about people from the Bay Area are really excited about the Giants right now. Right. So if you paint this, and it was, people surround, we did it out kind of outside under a tent, and people surrounded him while he was painting, and he was very entertaining, and it was fantastic. And we auctioned it. We did. That was the whole idea, was that it was going to be an auction item. And people got to be there and see it be painted. Art is so challenging, right? Like art can be very challenging because it's often not a what the heck, like staying in Maui or doing a chef dinner. It's a contemplative decision. If you don't like the painting, you don't want the painting. I have a Dali lithograph that I was trying to bid the other person up, and they were like, no, you can have it. And so I bought this in a silent auction 19 years ago, and it's been in a closet ever since because my wife hates it. Oh, yeah. Did not consult beforehand. Did not consult. Well, and this was a big painting. Right. This was not. It wasn't. It wouldn't fit in my house. Yeah. I mean, well, it fit one of Michael's sponsors' houses. Yeah, they're building a wing. Yeah. It was big, and I actually was able to go to the house that it was hung in. Oh, cool. They had a room with a pool table and sports, very fitting, memorabilia, and it hung as you like walked up the stairs, and it took up a wall. I want to say that painting was probably like 5 feet by 9 or it was big. It was a big
Euro
it was
practically.
It was a big.
And it went for big. It sold for like $20,000, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, I mean, so it's one of those things where all of the moment all built to, like everything built to this perfect moment.
Yeah,
Because
and there was a bidding war.
yeah, and the Giants popularity,
It was a war.
and the painting he did, it was you know, like
was great.
sometimes you get those and you're like, oh, and then they finish it off by splattering all this paint on. You're like, that's great, but who wants to hang up? No, his was great.
Yeah, it was great.
I'm pretty sure I have pictures of all of this too. I'll try to get this up on the YouTube. And all of that sells for $20,000, and then the artist says,
I'll paint another one if the other guy wants to buy it.
A double.
double, and you never double art, right?
No,
Yeah.
You know, and so we wound up so all of the drama around flying this guy out and bringing his manager and getting the sound system right, and at the end of the day, he raised $40K.
Yeah.
He kind of earned his diva status, actually.
Yeah, it was really awesome. And I bet he didn't argue with people about painting what they suggested anymore either, because he did not want to do that. And obviously people loved it.
Yeah, I'm sure the hug went for a lot more than Mick Jagger would have.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. No offense, Jagger.
No offense to Mick Jagger.
Mick Jagger hugging Buster Posey. Yeah, now that's a thing.
Oh, don't start me up, Devo.
He'll never stop.
Oh, some sympathy for this devil. So let's do some takeaways. And I think one of the takeaways, you said it at the beginning, is you have to be prepared to change, prepared to do things differently, prepared to adapt.
Yep. Nimble.
Yeah. Because
flexibility.
No plan. It's Tyson's line is, but no plan survives first contact.
Right. He says the first punch or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Once the auction punches you, all bets are off.
Right.
Yeah.
Everybody has a plan until their crowd refuses to sit down and stands around for 20 minutes drinking at their tables, right? Which happens every time.
And might I say, it kind of ties into the idea that this is a party as well as a fundraiser. So it doesn't have to be carefully scripted. In fact, we don't want it to be. It wants to feel like hooting and hollering and just having fun. I'm sure we've all dealt with having your MC, local celebrity, be like a newscaster. And sometimes their delivery is so good and perfect and measured that I feel like it almost takes away from like the spontaneity and the partiness of it. It's like kind of they're always at a perfect line of delivery. Whereas if someone's a little more human and, not so polished, it is charming in its way. So you got to embrace the chaos, right?
And I also think that what a couple of those stories underscore is you have to engage your crowd and empower them to care, right? Because that first story about the Niners guy donating the suite back, not only did he care enough to bid that puppy up, but then he had this plan that showed a lot of care for the kids at Hannah.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, let's not get into how many kids there were at Hannah and how you had to choose the 16 who got to go and all the others didn't, right? Like that's aside. But I mean, it showed that he cared. And in terms of having two bidders ready to do the painting, right? Like you have to care a lot about the organization. So empowering people to care enough to come up with plans, to want to do things differently. And ultimately doing things when you're putting on an event, being ready to make the adaptations so that your people don't know that something's gone wrong or something was a challenge or something was hard. Like nobody who attended that City Hall event knew how hard it was to get the U-Haul parked out front and for you to be out there at 6 o'clock in the morning unloading the car, right? And that's kind of part of it.
I say that a lot about events. The great thing is that if you make it look like it was perfect, but the panic is all inside, right?
Yep.
And there's always it's never gonna go perfect.
Nope.
And you just have to be able to really roll with it rather than to have everything just freeze because things aren't going as you'd like.
Right.
You just got to roll with it and go like, okay, how are we gonna get back in the groove again?
This was our plan. That's our story. We're sticking to it.
All the time.
That was the plan.
I mean, part of our job is to fill space with words, right? And occasionally I'll be in the middle of doing the auction. It's 1,000, 11 and 12, go 12, bid 12, and something will happen and I'll just stop. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to go back to filling the space with words because everybody's like, wait, oh my, something really bad must have happened.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Just roll with it.
I'm trying to think of other takeaways, I just think adaptability and flexibility are two of the biggest things that you can bring to planning fundraising events in general. Devon knows the broader I smile during a fundraising auction, and maybe I'm giving the secret away at this point to all 20 of you. But the broader I smile, the deeper shit I'm in. Right. The bigger my smile gets on stage, and the bigger, that just means oh, holy cow, this is just gone. Sorry, and so but part of that is just trying to put on the best face for whatever's happening.
Yeah.
So that the guests can continue to have an enjoyable time.
Yeah, and go and look at the stories we told tonight are a perfect example of, because we're off script doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. Right? Chaos, spontaneity, those are often in service of good things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go back to I don't remember which improvisational artist it was. It said that they plan months in advance to make it look like it happened on the spot for the very first time.
Yeah.
And that's what we do so much.
Yep.
Thank you again to the Boys and Girls Club of Sonoma Valley for hosting us on site. Love all the banners. Thank you, Leslie, for joining us on our podcast.
Thanks,
Good luck to
Leslie.
you and the hospital foundation. We know you're gonna rock it. We know you're gonna rock it. Thank you, listeners and watchers, for joining us for this episode of Black Tie and Tales. We appreciate you as always. You can find our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube, and all of your favorite podcast distribution channels. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to
like, subscribe, smash that like button.
hit all the bells, ding, ding, ding. You can also find us at blacktieandtails.com. Until next time, thanks again. Dun, 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 dun.